Hello and welcome to the Matchbook Champions League betting podcast. I'm Phil Kitchamalides. We're here to look ahead to the final round of group games in this season's competition. Time flies when you're tipping winners, and we had a couple of nice wins in the previous podcast. I'm joined by Ian Broddersrs and Mark O'Hare. Mark was actually ill for the last podcast, so he couldn't join us. It was just Broddersrs and myself, and we managed to come up with a nice few selections. I'm not going to brag too much, but I actually, Mark, I don't know if you listened to the podcast, I'm assuming that you did, that I stepped in and I actually gave a tip. Juventus to beat Atletico Madrid at home around about 2.15. I love that bet. It came through. My work is done for the rest of the season. I'm not tipping anything else. I'm going out 100% record. I'll leave it over to you and Broddersrs now to get through the tipping. We've actually got loads to get through on today's program. We've got 4 matches that we want to get through. We've also got to take a look at some long shots and the best bets of the week. So without further ado, guys, how do you feel about us getting into the first game, which is Shakhtar Donetsk against Atalanta? It's a really interesting group, this, actually, Shakhtar Donetsk and Atalanta, because essentially this game, its winner goes through to the last 16. There are some other permutations, but basically its winner goes through. Shakhtar available at 2.6. You can get Atalanta around about 2.65. The draw at 3.86. If you fancy Shakhtar Donetsk, draw no bet, which is on the +0 handicap, 1.95. Remember, these two sides played earlier on in the group, and Shakhtar scored a late goal in Bergamo to pick up a 2-1 victory. We've spoken quite a lot, guys, on the programme throughout the season about Atalanta, about they're a great team to watch, about how they almost guarantee goals. And I feel good about this selection because both of you fancy goals in this game. I'll let you go first, Mark, and tell us why we should be backing goals in this game.
Yeah, I mean, you've teed it up superbly there, Phil. Atalanta are basically chasing the great escape. They were pointless after Matchday 3, lost their first 3 games. And now to be with a shot of qualifying for the last 16, it's fantastic for them. Winning in Shakhtar will do it if Dynamo Zagreb don't beat Man City at home, which you wouldn't expect them to, but they're already through, so you never know. But if they do qualify, you'd have to say it would be reasonably well-deserved because they have been very, very good in this competition. I would say second best in the group, averaging over 2.1 expected goals per game. Defensively, though, they have been pretty atrocious, but that's kind of Atalanta, really, all over. They're a fantastic team to watch, really fun going forward, huge amounts of attacking quality, but defensively just not reliable enough to really make a strong challenge on Serie A or potentially here in Europe. Their 5 Champions League games so far have averaged 4.26 expected goals, which is obviously a lot higher than the 3.6 goals per game, which we've seen, which to me suggests that this is going to be another high-scoring game. As you've rightly said, winner-takes-all scenario, which always kind of breeds towards a more open, thrilling, attacking football. So I'm just really surprised to see the goals line set here at 3, where rather than what I would have put it down to as a 3.5 game. So with that in mind, you can get over 2 3/4 goals at around 1.8 or just shorter than that, which looks like great value to me. Look towards Shakhtar. They got an invaluable 1-1 draw against Man City on Matchday 5. A surprising draw, you could say, but their goalkeeper, Piatov, has not kept a clean sheet in this competition for 24 Champions League games, which is obviously quite encouraging for a goals-based bet. They did win at Atalanta, pinching that win late on, but it came on the counter-attack. Atalanta hit the post twice and missed a penalty in that match. Really should have gotten something out of that game. But going back to Shakhtar, their games against Dynamo Zagreb give you a good idea of how this team kind of set up and play. 3-3 and 2-2 draws. The 3-3 in Zagreb was absolutely epic. They scored twice in stoppage time to get that point. And now 14 of their last 17 group games have featured at least 3 goals. And this group has just been pretty bonkers for goals, as I've mentioned already. Even exclude Man City, and we're seeing the games between Shakhtar, Dynamo Zagreb, and Atalanta average 3.8 goals per game. So I know they're quite small samples, but the group dynamics really play into things here, and I'm fully expecting a shootout here. And I'm just really, really surprised the goals line has been set quite low here. And I think with that in mind, over 2 3/4 goals really appeals to me, knowing we'll make money if there's 3 goals or more.
I like it when you guys argue, but I do also like it when you agree about a bet. And I think you and Broddersrs definitely agree about this. Broddersrs, goals galore.
Yeah. I could, Mark's covered everything as usual, thorough way. The way the game's going to set up should be interesting as well, with Atalanta having to win it to stand any chance of going through. So that will set up well for Shakhtar as well. So Shakhtar are best when they're able to counter-attack. They've got some fabulous attacking players like Tyson and Marlos, and Junior Moraes up front is a fantastic finisher. So everything Mark has said, I would echo. This has potential to be the game of the whole round, to be honest with you. The way that Atalanta play almost guarantees it, and Shakhtar, it will fit perfectly with the way that they like to play as well. So I know that a draw might be enough if Dynamo don't beat Man City, but obviously Man City, off the back of the loss to Man United at the weekend, I would imagine would play a very, very shadow side in Zagreb. So yes, it will all to play for, and anything getting over to 2.75 at 1.8 is a fabulous bet.
Okay, there you go. A fabulous bet. We might already have found our bets of the week, but we'll get our bet of the week at the end of the programme. We're live on the Matchbook YouTube channel, on Twitter and on Facebook as well. If you're joining us this morning for our live recording of the Matchbook Champions League betting podcast. Let's move on and discuss another game, which Mark particularly wanted to talk about. This, essentially, it's a Europa League playoff, because neither of these sides can make it through to the latter stages of the Champions League, but both of them can claim third place. Red Star currently in third place, but Olympiacos will claim it if they win. Let's take a look at the prices for this game. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm seeing Olympiacos at 1.54 to win a Champions League game, unless they're playing the Cambodian under-11s. I do not like that price at all, but maybe Mark has something else to say. Red Star Belgrade, you can get them at 6.8 and a draw at 4.45. Mark, why did you want to talk about this game? Surely you're not backing Olympiacos anywhere near 1.54.
No. I mean, they are the most likely winners, but that's a horrible price to get involved with. As you say, it's a Europa League tie, and I think, or a playoff tie, and I think both teams would probably see a Europa League place as a favourable outcome. Really, it's a difficult group. They never really stood a chance in qualifying above Bayern Munich or Spurs. So I think both teams will be going for this game, and Olympiacos absolutely fair favourites, but no real lean there towards the price. Given the outcome, or given the expected outcome of this game being, reasonably quite a lot riding on it for both these two teams, I'm expecting quite an open and exciting game. Red Star away from home have been atrocious in the Champions League, 5 defeats from 5 group stage games since they entered the competition at this phase, by an aggregate of 21-2. Kind of breeds into why Olympiacos are such short favourites here. But really disappointingly for me, Red Star haven't really put up their usual resistance in Belgrade this year, hasn't really materialised. They burgled a late win against Olympiacos in the reverse game due to a few handy set pieces late on, but blown away by Bayern Munich last time out, and gave Spurs a few too many opportunities too. But away from home, they are probably one of the worst teams in Europe. But I'm still not sure Olympiacos should be as short as that. But I think the obvious thing for me here is to get with goals, really, because I think the price is attractive. Really, it's not too far off even money for over 2.5 goals. We're at 1.9, and that appeals to me. We've basically got the two worst defences in the group by a long stretch. They've conceded 33 goals in the group, but Olympiacos do actually offer a bit of a goal-scoring threat. They scored at least twice at home to Spurs and Bayern Munich, gave both of them a decent game, only failed to score away at Bayern in this group. And I think over 2.5 goals is fair enough, around 1.9. It's landed in 9 of 10 games in this group. I mentioned Olympiacos, they do score goals. I've actually taken the lead in 3 of their 4 Champions League ties so far, in the last 4 ties, I should say, but actually gone on to lose all of them. But they're winless in 13 in this competition, and have conceded at least twice in 12 of those 13 as well. But they have got players in attacking areas who can cause problems. So whilst I wouldn't rely on them defensively, I've got faith in them going forward against the Red Star team, who have conceded the most goals in the competition, the most shots, and the most shots on target as well. So I think put the two of them together, plus the dynamics of a Europa League playoff, which both will see as a potential route of progress and recognition this season. And I think overs is probably priced up a little bit too short for me. So I think over 2.5 goals, anything around 1.9 is a fair bet.
It finished 3-1 when these two sides met in Belgrade early on. That's the only game in which Red Star have scored in the group stages, but it did come against Olympiacos. So maybe lightning will strike again. We'll see more goals this time in Piraeus. This wasn't a game that you specifically wanted to talk about, Broddersrs, but he's made a relatively convincing case, hasn't he, Mark?
Yeah, no, he always does. I could definitely see that. I think the only things that I would pick up on or be slightly worried about would be the possibility of cards in this particular game. Olympiacos were winning 1-0 in the reverse fixture before they had a player sent off, Benzia, fairly early in the second half, which then Red Star equalised about 5 minutes later, and then, as Mark says, scored those 2 late goals to win it. I think there is every possibility, depending on the referee. We don't know who the referee is yet, but I think depending on the referee, buyers of bookings might well be sniffing around this game. But yeah, I like the goals. I could see Olympiacos -1 being a fair bet around 1.96 currently. I take what Mark's saying, but I think they are the better side here. They're at home. Red Star are historically very bad away from home, and I could easily see them losing their heads if they go behind. As I say, maybe seeing red cards and so on. So I think it's definitely going to be an eventful game. I'm totally happy with the goals angle, but I'd also say Olympiacos -1 might be a play as well. So.
Okay, there we go. That's Olympiacos against Red Star. Let's move on and talk about another game. It could have been one of the biggest fixtures in the final round of matches in the Champions League, but there isn't too much riding on Inter against Barcelona for Barcelona, who have already won the group. Inter need to get something out of this game. They need to match Borussia Dortmund's result at home to Slavia Prague. Borussia probably going to beat Slavia Prague at home, so Inter probably have to beat Barcelona. Barcelona offered at a huge 5.1 to win at San Siro. You can get Inter at 1.69, the draw at 4.5. Naturally, those odds are conditioned by the fact that Barcelona have already won the group. We don't know at the time of recording who is in the matchday squad for Barcelona. I would assume it's going to be a lot of fringe players, youth players, maybe even some of the under-19 squad as well. It is not going to be Messi, Suarez and co heading to San Siro. They are going to rest, which is why Inter are such strong favourites. What's the play here then, Brodders, Inter against Barca?
Well, I think you've touched on it basically. I think we're expecting Barcelona to take a very shadow side to the San Siro. Dortmund are playing Slavia Prague at the same time, and as long as Inter match Dortmund's result, they go through. So yeah. I think for me, I would keep this nice and simple. I expect Inter to win the game. They outplayed Barcelona in the Nou Camp in the reverse fixture for long periods of that game, and were very unlucky not to.
They could have been 4-0 up at half time, couldn't they?
I mean, yeah, and at the moment Inter are playing with real swagger. I mean, Lautaro and Lukaku up front have got a real partnership going. It's looking exceptionally strong. I think this could be the kind of game that Lukaku loves, because we've all seen him struggle perhaps against the absolute best sides, but you put him against a team, and in this case in Barcelona, who may well be playing reserve players or younger players that he can bully and to physically intimidate. Throw in a rocking San Siro, which I've experienced as a Chelsea fan, and I think it's going to be a night where Barcelona really don't care. They've won the group. To them, it's irrelevant. So I think you can look at the handicaps here with some confidence. Minus 0.75 for Inter. You're getting it around 1.8, 1.85, that kind of range at the moment. I think even if you're getting a half stakes win with a win, that's good value, because I can't see anything other than a fairly straightforward Inter win here, to be honest.
Mark?
Yeah, exactly the same here. Obviously, the odds are conditioned by the fact that Barcelona will most likely rest and rotate. You could look back to this stage last season. They're in a similar position at home to Spurs at the Camp Nou on matchday 6. Their next games were against Levante and Celta Vigo, yet they arrested Piqué, Messi, Busquets, ter Stegen, which you'd say is probably the real core, the real spines of that team. The likes of Munir, Carlos Alenia, Juan Miranda and Vermaelen all played. The game ended in a draw, but you get the idea there for what Valverde's likely to do, because Barca have a tough schedule after this game. They play Sociedad, which is notorious a banana skin for them, and then the Clásico next midweek too. So a real critical 7 days coming after this game. So absolutely no reason for Valverde to go with a full-strength team here at all. Broddersrs has already mentioned the attacking threat from Inter Milan and Lukaku and Lautaro. They've been outstanding this season. We've mentioned they were fantastic in the reverse game. They're fantastic for 45 minutes away at Dortmund too. Really should have got a result from that game, but Dortmund came roaring back after that game. And Barcelona, as we've talked about many times in this podcast, dreadful away from home in the Champions League, but not just that, domestically as well. They were appalling in Prague on Matchday 4. Look at them domestically, second best at Atletico last week, underwhelming against Leganés and Getafe, dreadful, Granada, Levante, Athletic, you can say as well. And their Champions League away record since 2017, 5 wins from 15, and those wins are at Sporting, Spurs, Slavia Prague, PSV, and Man United. And in only 3 of those 15 games, they score more than once. So,
but even if it was a full strength, Barcelona side, we'll be having second thoughts. The fact that there's going to be reserves makes
absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. Inter, first time this season they'd failed to score under Conte on Friday night against a good Roma team. They will offer attacking threat. They will get forward and cause this Barcelona team plenty of problems. So completely in agreement with Broddersrs there about the bet minus 0.75 on the Asian. Because
there will be people looking at that and thinking, Barcelona 5.1 to win. Obviously, I'm going to have a piece of that. But yeah, be aware that there is a lot riding on this game for Inter. Absolutely nothing riding on this game for Barcelona, who, as Mark points out, have 2 very big La Liga games coming up. As I said, at the time of recording, we don't have the Matchday squad, but do not expect to see any big names in there at all. And a really good Inter side who remain top of Serie A should probably be too strong for Barcelona reserves. The final game we want to talk about is Lyon against RB Leipzig. Lyon with plenty riding on this game. You can get them at 2.57, Leipzig at 2.87, the draw at 3.66. Remember, Lyon actually won in Germany. They beat Leipzig 2-0 earlier on in the competition. I think that's Leipzig's only defeat in the Champions League so far this season. It's been an interesting group, this. It's been one that has been pretty entertaining. Certainly Leipzig have brought a lot to the Champions League, not least in terms of goals and entertainment. Mark, you particularly wanted to talk about this. What's the angle in this one?
It's goals, Phil. I've really enjoyed Group G, the most open group of all. From the outset, really, with Zenit being the top seeds. And after 5 rounds, only 3 points separate the top 3. And they've all tended to be pretty watchable affairs. 7 of the 10 games have seen both teams score, 6 gone over 2.5 goals. And I think goals are just synonymous whenever Leipzig and Julian Nagelsmann are involved. They were very fortunate, actually, to be in this position where they've qualified, because they scored 2 very, very late goals at home to Benfica to get a draw in a 2-2 game. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting game. Still quite a lot riding on it, especially from a Lyon perspective. But you look at Leipzig, since October's international break, they've been absolutely thrilling, really. They really found their groove. 8 wins from 10, scored at least twice in 9 of those games and scored 33 goals in those 10 games. Werner, Sabitzer, Forsberg, Poulsen, all absolutely ripping it up at the moment in Germany. And I think a Leipzig team that's fit and firing and confident and understanding what their coach is demanding is quite a frightening prospect, even if they don't need to go out and win this match. Even still, Nagelsmann is very much a gung-ho coach. His teams aren't renowned for clean sheets or low-scoring games. And I think that has to be the tact here again. They're going to play on the front foot. They always will. Since he's arrived, they've seen overs in 16 of 21 games across all competitions. The 5 games that didn't feature over 2.5 featured exactly 2 goals. 16 of those matches also saw both teams score. And you look at Lyon, they've been incredibly inconsistent this year. Even so, under Rudy Garcia, since he's come in, the last 6 have alternated between wins and losses. On Friday night, they beat a Nîmes team in crisis on and off the pitch. Nîmes had 2 players sent off. Kept a clean sheet for only the 4th time in 20 games since mid-August in that game. But crucially, they had Memphis Depay back fit, Houssem Aouar as well. Arguably their 2 most creative outlets who've been missing in recent weeks, but even still, they've scored twice or more in 6 of their most recent 9. But just going back, that a couple of days earlier, they were absolutely appalling at home to Lille. So you don't really know what you're going to get from Lyon, but you can almost guarantee when Depay's especially in the team, that they will get forward, score goals, and create opportunities. So I think this has got a really interesting angle to it. And I think overs is again slightly underrated. I think over 2 3/4 goals at 1.84 around that market is definitely appealing to me. Leipzig's games alone in the Champions League are averaging 3.26 expected goals. I don't expect that total to lower significantly here. I think it's going to be a really good game.
Brothers, Leipzig are a little bit like Atalanta in terms of when you see them, you almost automatically edge towards a goals-based bet, no matter who they're playing. Mark likes over 2.75. It seems like a pretty good bet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I echo everything he said there. Lyon know that if they win this game, they're guaranteed to go through, irrespective of what happens in the other match. So I think you'll see Lyon approach this in the way that they do often, which is positively. That will set up well for Leipzig to counterattack with the pace of Werner, and Mark's already said that Sabitzer, Poulsen, all of them are playing out their skin at the moment. So I'm hoping Leipzig get something from this, because I've got them a bit overall. I've got them to win the group. I'm very pro Leipzig in the competition. So, but I could see this easily being a 2-1, a 2-2, a 3-2, a 3-3. It literally could be any score depending on who scores first and when. But I think, for example, if Leipzig score first, Lyon will really have to go for it. And I think getting over 2.75 is a fabulous bet again. So yeah.
Okay, good. Goals for Lyon and Leipzig. Okay, so those are the 4 games that we've specifically wanted to analyse a little bit in depth. Let me tell you about Matchbook's sign-up offer, because you get a £10 of bonus if your first bet loses. Create an account, place your first bet within 7 days of signing up. If that bet loses, Matchbook will refund your stake as cash up to a maximum of £10. Accumulators are excluded from the offer. Refunds are applied within 72 hours, which means you've basically got a £10 risk-free bet. With that in mind, I'm going to get the guys to give us their best value bet from this week's action in the Champions League. You've got a £10 risk-free bet. Mark, who are you putting that £10 risk-free bet on?
Yeah, I looked around. I thought Valencia were massively overpriced for their trip to Ajax. They're around 5-1. I know they've had a really tough time with injuries, but despite that, they've been involved in some really good, interesting matches at least. The weekend, 2-0 down to Levante in the derby, coming back to win 4-2 despite the injuries. And despite the players missing, you look at that 11 that they can field, it's still really, really strong. And they're scoring goals for fun at the moment under Albert Solares. Okay, defensively, they're not the most impressive team
They did lose 3-0 at home to Ajax.
They did, but I mean, this bet is more tailored towards probably Ajax than Valencia in fairness, because they're in a massively false position in the group. They've got a goal difference of +7, 3 wins from 5. But you look at the expected goals difference; it's actually -6.4, which means there's a 13-goal swing there in their favour, which probably shouldn't be. Chelsea beat them in Amsterdam pretty comfortably, and Valencia have given Chelsea 2 cracking games so far in the competitions. 5-1, too big for me. I think they should be much closer to 3. So they'll be my outsider shout.
Okay, good. Nice big price then. Juicy 5.0 for Valencia to win in Amsterdam. Broddersrs, who are you putting your £10 bet on? Can't hear you, Broddersrs. Have you muted yourself? There we go.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right. What's your best
name? Sorry, you're going to like this. I'm going to put it on Spurs.
Ooh.
Obviously, Bayern v Spurs, there's nothing riding on it at all. So, Bayern have won the league, the group, and Spurs have come second. However, Mourinho's in charge at Spurs now, and there will be an element of wanting to try and get some pride back after Bayern smashed Spurs 7-2 earlier in the competition. Obviously, we don't have team news, so who knows what teams either of them will put out. But I rather suspect the Spurs will take the game more seriously than Bayern. Why would Bayern bother? They've won the group. They don't have that sort of level of need to try and prove themselves. They've already done that in the reverse fixture. So I think getting Spurs at around the small money around sort of 6.7, 6.5, that kind of level is an interesting price for a game that I think Mourinho would actually quite like to win. And I think his arrogance and his sort of need to be relevant will push him to maybe name a stronger side than Bayern might be wanting to do. So yeah, I think that's an interesting price.
There we go. 2 very juicy priced long shots for our best long shots of the week. Before we go then, let's get our panel's 2 best bets of the week. Mark O'Hare, what is your best bet of the week for Matchday 6 in the Champions League?
Just go back to the beginning, Phil. It's Shakhtar against Atalanta, over 2.75 goals. I think it's an absolutely fantastic price for basically a winner-takes-all tie between two teams who can't defend and love to get forward. So, yeah, happy days.
I've got a strong feeling that might just be the best bet of the week for Broddersrs. Is that the best bet of the week for you, Broddersrs?
It really is. I want to put something different up, but I think it stands out. It's an absolutely fabulous bet at 2.75.
There we go. That is our best bet of the week, over 2.75 goals in Shakhtar against Atalanta. That's it for this edition of the Matchbook Champions League betting podcast. We've been here throughout the group stages. We're taking a little break now before the round of 16, but we will be back the week before the round of 16 to preview what we're hoping to be some very interesting ties. Make sure you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your normal podcasts, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks or a couple of months even to look ahead to those round of 16 matches in the Champions League. Make sure you join us then. See ya.